aim is for maximum amount of people to share thoughts and ideas. And this is what I'm here to do today. So this is not about specifically about banking. It's not specifically about any solutions, because I don't have any. No one, I think, does have any solutions. It's just to shed some light on experience and how to tackle crisis when crisis hits. So we've been through a lot in the past, and I can talk about the first Gulf War in 1991, and I can talk about the Asian crisis in '98. I can talk about 9/11 in 2001. I can talk about second Gulf War in 2003, and I can talk about the global crisis in 2008, and now 2020. And my views basically is each and every crisis is absolutely and utterly fundamentally different than the one before. So I would suggest that do not compare crises to each other. Difficult times are difficult times, but the fundamentals are different. I would usually ask people to reflect on previous crises and their own experience. And in a time where we've got a newer generation joining the workforce, with probably many people, this is their first crisis in their career. Maybe if they're lucky, this is their second. And I've probably listed about 7, 8 crises that we've dealt with, being regional, being global crisis. And, from a observation, they are different. Now, zooming in on C19, i.e. Corona, COVID-19, preferably C19, again, a totally different crisis. And for many of us who have been on the workforce for many years, probably it's the first time we have to deal with a pandemic. So this is a first for many of us, even that have been there for many years in the workforce. Some people, and I am fully aware and cognizant of the fact that I may find a lot of people disagreeing with me, but that's fine. Everyone has their own views. And the general consensus within the community, business community, banking community, we're talking about a pure pandemic that is not a financial crisis. And I would, with my respect to everyone, I disagree. And I think it is a financial crisis in disguise. So if we looked at the the different asset classes and the prices of these asset classes in the recent past, we can see a huge inflation in the prices of the various asset classes. A small comparison and a small example. If I look at Dow Jones closer to 4 years ago when President Trump was elected, it was ranging between 15 and 17,000, and it reached a peak of 29,000. In my opinion, that is way overpriced. If we look at the PE ratios on Dow Jones, you would see things, valuations north of 150, which is way too high, way too expensive. If I look at real estate across the world in the major cities, excluding this part of the world, it's a totally different ballgame here. You can see that real estate prices have become quite inflated in many major cities in the world. And I think that the market was looking for an excuse to have a major correction. Dow Jones dropped very aggressively at the outset from 29,000, reaching around 18,000, and now bouncing back to 25,000, give and take. So personal view, and again, welcome any disagreement here, but this is a financial crisis. And we can see, the repercussions very obvious and clear in terms of confidence, in terms of consumer confidence across the globe. Um, Arguably, we can say people have been under lockdown. We can talk about various things. Yes, there is a pandemic. I don't deny that. Now, the main aim, Selma, when we did, agree to arrange for this lovely gathering here, is talking about leadership in crisis, bringing on the team, and what have you. And we can theorize and try to give people ready-made solutions, and there aren't any. I wouldn't be, giving people justice. But what I would want to do is try to give people, some thoughts on tackling tough situations, and leave everything else to people's best judgment as to how they would be flexible and agile if they want to apply some of these ideas. Now, we can talk about, and I've spoken a lot about people having, before a crisis hits, usually I would always suggest to my more junior colleagues or my customers or my stakeholders that people actually need always at any point in time to have a plan. Now, many people have heard me say this, endlessly. It is a fact. And you'd be surprised as to how many people do not have a plan in life, for their own careers, or their own businesses. And people fall into the trap of, in good times, you're just sailing across, and you don't need a plan. I mean, you're just either, making money as much as you want, or making it big in your own career, but aimless, with no real plan. Plan is extremely important, and having a plan, people think that a plan is rigid. A plan is not at all rigid. It's an apparatus where you use to monitor yourself and monitor your own performance. And it is as flexible as you want it to be. It's your plan, and you can just simply change it and adjust to the current situation you're in. So if you do have a plan, that's something great. If you don't have a plan, well, it's not the best time to start one, but it's never too late. And I think people actually do need to be focused in the approach. We're talking about focus. Since I was talking about focus, many people tend to get into their day-to-day habits and just take things as they come and react.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, that's a killer. That is a killer. Crisis gives people the opportunity to actually take a breather, step back, relax, think, and see what is important for them at that moment in time, career-wise, business-wise, and make adjustments. We do need to be so agile, especially in these times. I know I can throw out, buzzwords, and I could say agile. I can talk about planning and empathy and focus and what have you, and these things I will touch upon. Actually, some would think that Ahmed is trying to be shallow. I'm trying to be simplistic. Simplistic does not mean shallow whatsoever, and we are constrained by time. And there's a certain level of detail I can really delve into in such a short period of time. But believe me, each and every one of these simple words, it takes years of experience to actually master. I would kindly ask people to really look at the deeper meaning of things. And I do appreciate that not all of us come from the same background or the same level of experience. Some people are more experienced than us, some people are not, but we're here to learn from each other. So focus, focus in such times is extremely essential, because we are in an environment where it's ever evolving, and you have new developments coming up every minute. And if we're not agile enough and if we're not flexible enough, we will break. I can assure you. Agility also, there's no contradiction whatsoever between agility and consistency. Consistency um, is having a consistent approach. It does not mean doing the same thing again and again and again, the same way every day, day in, day out. And consistency is extremely important. Consistency could actually mean changing your management style every day, based on a situation, based on a certain variable that was presented to you today and actually wasn't there yesterday. So extremely important. Focus. You'll find a lot of gossip these days. You'll find people giving thoughts and ideas just like we are today. And someone may go and say, hey, I've heard something new, which may not be a fact. It may be an opinion. It becomes a gossip and it becomes a rumor in no time at all. And it impacts and affects people's morale. That, whenever you do hear that something that is suspicious, doesn't make sense, there's nothing wrong with checking with people in the know, people who have a different view, and checking actually the facts and reality and baking that into your decision-making process. Leadership is a huge concept, huge. And we have so many gurus in the world who live on selling books on leadership, giving courses on leadership. In my opinion, leadership is a much simpler concept. It's not about, being a management guru. It's based on very, very simple thoughts and ideas. And being a leader has nothing to do with your rank. CEO does not mean leader. COO does not mean leader. A junior member of staff sitting on a counter somewhere could be the best leader, if that person actually learns and, more importantly, takes initiative to try and find solutions to problems. That is a leader. So unfortunately, whenever we talk about leadership, the stereotype is a CEO or a senior business head here or there, and I totally disagree with that. Anyone can be a leader. It's the approach that people take, and based on that, if I look at a management team and the dynamics between a management team in any organization, there are so many variables that come into picture, be it some people trying to, for lack of other words, brown nose the boss, not actually giving solutions to a problem, and waiting for the person with a piece of paper that says that they're the top in their organization to come with solutions and be accountable for them. That is not leadership whatsoever. And a leader, based on the definition I just threw, which is a very basic and simple, I'm not going to use so many buzzwords like learning and unlearning, and it's so many concepts in leadership, but they're just the brick and mortar, the basic people who actually work hard, who take initiative, try to innovate, and learn from their mistakes. Those are leaders. Now, in difficult times and in crisis, it's essential that teamwork and team spirit is maintained to the highest levels, and everyone has a say, especially in unprecedented times, where actually looking around the table, no one actually has 100% experience to get the team across the finish line. No one's actually experienced the pandemic in at least our lifetime, our, you know, the sort of people we're talking to and the age profiles we're talking to today. No one can claim that they're the expert. I'm not the expert, and no one is. Or no one has been through a similar pandemic in their careers. But when a team sits around the table and tackles a problem as a team, and everyone is heard, and people actually share thoughts and ideas, and you know, as a team, people decide on taking things forward. At the end of the day, there needs to be someone who may have to take the final call, because again, we're not talking about democracy here. We're talking about ownership, and we're talking about accountability. Because of the, you know, wrong decision may be the end of an organization. One simple wrong decision. Yes, we would listen to each other, we would debate and argue, and we would come to the best sort of solution. And someone will have to take the final call to execute or not in a certain way. And more importantly, be accountable to taking that decision. Not running away or hiding or saying, you know, it was a team and I run a full democracy here. It doesn't work that way. People do need to take decisions, and there is no right or wrong. Sometimes it's a leap of faith. When you don't have the whole data, there is no experience in tackling a similar situation, you've taken a judgment call based on the available data you have today and based on the consensus within the team, and taken that call. So in my mind, that is leadership at its best, because you've trusted your team, you've empowered them to take a part of that, being part of that decision, and you trusted them, you trusted your instinct, you trusted the data that's being presented to you, facts and figures, and took that leap of faith based on whatever information you have. More importantly, again, and I repeat, being clearly and critically accountable for the outcome, basically. So I refuse to delve deeper into leadership. I don't think it's a science or the art that people portray it and try to make millions of dollars in selling books and giving lectures on. And it does take a lot of energy. It does take knowledge. It does take instinct. It does take charisma, but not limited to any of these. It could be a combination of these, but more important is having a fully functioning team that is empowered. That is what makes leaders, and that's what makes you know, the best decision possible for any organization. So this is how would, you know, the basic question, Salma, that you threw at me was leadership in crisis. I'm not, as I said, and I did give this bit of a caveat, and I said, you know, I'm giving personal views that are general enough for everyone else to make use of and grasp, and simplistic enough for everyone around the VC today to relate to. Of course, I will be taking questions shortly. Of course, some of the things that we miss in the midst of difficulty and crisis, because we're so busy firefighting on a day-to-day basis, and we're so busy in tackling these issues that keep on coming our way, is spotting the opportunities that every crisis presents to each and every person. Unfortunately, in the current days, a lot of people globally are losing their jobs. And it's easier said than done, I know, but maybe that's the best opportunity that was presented to them in their life. Maybe it's the time to reflect and say, do I want to stay in this sort of line of business? Is it the time to open my own business? Is it the time that I'm so passionate about doing this or that in my life? Is it the time that I change my career because I dread this career and I cannot take it anymore? That is an opportunity. Um, Being made redundant may be the best blessing that may be presented to someone. And I've seen so many examples in my career, which is just jumping into 29 years now, um, that people would tell me the best blessing in my life was being made redundant from my previous role, because now I'm following my passion. In terms of businesses, it is an opportunity to have a look at um, what is it that I'm actually doing? Am I as optimal as I can be? Optimal, and many people would think that just firing people. Absolutely not. That's if that needs to happen, it's an unfortunate reality. And we do that with a lot of empathy. But did I negotiate all those contracts I have with my vendors? Did I try to reduce as much cost as I can? Is it the right time to get rid of some of my business lines that are not optimal? Do I do a U-turn on my strategy? Because in the good days, people unfortunately don't feel the propensity to stop and ask these questions because, hey, it's good times. A crisis presents itself with, a lot of opportunity, but, and there's a big but here, people need to actually, not be so engulfed with firefighting and see this opportunity and spot it. Because, crisis doesn't present itself every day. Opportunity also doesn't present itself every day. And if you're too engulfed in firefighting, you won't spot these opportunities. You won't. So I would, and I know I'm going to be criticized on what I'm about to say, but it does take, by the way, you can get there, and it does take practice. Take a step back and tackle things with a very cool head. Panicking in the face of crisis adds insult to injury, and I can assure you the result of panicking during crisis is quite severe and quite negative. It does take practice, guys. I know you may say it's a very simple word, it's not. And to actually, during crisis, tackle things with a cool head and not panic actually does take a lot of practice, patience, and experience. If you manage to get there, you will spot a lot of opportunities today. Make best use of these opportunities. These are once in a lifetime opportunities, be it, as I said, getting rid of business lines, collapsing your cost base, working on more efficiencies within your staff, maybe buying a new business right in the middle of crisis, maybe buying that real estate in today's market. It's a leap of faith. You may or may not get it right, but you actually do need to do your homework. So that is extremely important. Don't let crisis distract you from spotting these opportunities and making the absolute best use of them. Resilience. Yeah, go ahead.
So Ahmad, we talk a lot about mindset, and I think, and that's, it maps into leadership, or it maps into success. I mean, 80% of success in life is usually mindset. The way that what you're talking about is the way to be able to step back and look at things from a different point of view. When people are looking at things and getting fearful and just feeling uncertain and panicking and so on, what differentiates people is the way you look at things and the way you're able to actually shut down the noise of uncertainty and fear and so on, and amplify looking for opportunities. Because right now, the first reaction and everybody's doing is, in a crisis like this, all businesses and all people are shrinking. You're shrinking costs, you're trying to control. Because the first thing that we do is, when a crisis happens, control goes out of the window. So we're trying to grapple and gain back control by, getting some kind of certainty, or cutting down expenses and so on. But, after the phase of where we have reduced our expenses, gotten whatever we can under control and so on, how critical is it for us to move into the, past resilience, past survival mode, into flourishing? Because with opportunities that we're being presented to today may not come back, as you're saying. We have the opportunity and the gift of time to be able to reflect and repivot and re-engineer our lives and the lives of our businesses. Do you see that cycle of getting out of the survival mode into growth and flourishing happening soon? What's your take on that?
Personal opinion, if I'm talking about the current crisis, I don't see it happening soon, anytime very soon. Just from past experience and applying some of what I've learned to a totally alien environment today, and it's totally alien. So no one today can sit here with their crystal ball and say it's going to be over and things will be up and running in, say, 12 months. I mean, no one can say that. No one knows. The full repercussions of the current crisis, no one can tell. My feel and my take and my analysis, I conclude that we need to be resilient as we can, do our best and hope for the best. I don't see anything getting much better anytime soon, i.e. within months. That I doubt will happen. So we need to be prepared for a hard landing. And once we get to the bottom of this and we reach the bottom repercussions, that's when you can actually take account of all your losses. And you can have a forward-looking view as to when you think the pendulum will turn the other direction. Personal view, it's going to take months. I don't want to be, I'm not a pessimist by nature. I'm not going to say years, but I hope we start seeing green shoots, say in a year maybe. But green shoots. I hope before that. I hope so, but I can't give you a definite answer, Salma.
So meanwhile, it is all about managing, and I'm fearful when you were talking about having a plan, and I'm really, I'm fearful for people who do not have a plan, because in uncertain time, it's like you're in a stormy sea, and your plan is, the sail that will keep you going. Because when we don't know what's happening around us, the only thing I think that we can hold on to is just like to go forward with a plan. So that really scares me when, for people who don't have that. But like you said, it's not too late to sit down and write a plan, and look at things, chart a new way.
Sure. On that plan, and I'm cognizant of time. We've got less than about 23 minutes left.
Talking questions on the chat streaming
sure,
in, so we
sure.
might do.
I was talking to Gallup some time back, their New York office, and they told me, and this is, this is a proven number, 5% of 22-year-olds only have a plan. Why 22-year-olds? That's the age of people graduating from university. And unfortunately, a good chunk of 40-year-olds never have a plan. So it is what it is.
Absolutely.
Would you like to jump into Q&A, Salma?
Yes, absolutely. I'm gonna, please, this is a discussion, and we've kept it as a nice group. We have a nice group of attendees today. If you would like to unmute yourself, if you have a question, we already have questions on the chat. One of them, I'm gonna read it to you. It says, when a crisis has significant financial impact like this one, how can you adapt your business model to reduce costs, both in the short and medium term? I think you've started talking about that a little bit.
You look at every possible rivet you have in the business, everything. I mean, you look at the contracts you've signed with your vendors, you look at your rents, if you're renting out offices, you look at your staff, and you right size, and it is tough decisions. These are tough decisions. You do not employ more people than you need. You can't afford to. And this is not in any way, shape, or form simply a tough decision that needs to be made in tough times, because if, God forbid, the business drowns, the others will drown with it. You'll drown as a business owner or a CEO or what have you. And regardless of individuals, the mass majority of other staff may drown. So you need to keep your options open. Never say never. Never say never. And you just hold on to your income statement. Look at every cost line in that income statement. Every cost line you can see in the income statement, and you do your absolute best within the constraints to shrink that number as much as possible. Your revenue line, which is the top line, in many cases is not within your control, especially in crisis time. You will be impacted regardless of whatever business you come from. You need to minimize that. And it's not an easy thing to do. I mean, it takes a lot of juggling. There will be financial impact across the board, but it's done line by line on the income statement, and it's done in a scientific method. So within the constraints of time, I hope I've answered the question.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Like I said, please comment, and I've muted everybody just to concentrate on Ahmad, so we don't have any disturbance. So please, if you'd like to contribute, unmute yourself. And while people are doing that, I wanted to ask you about this new normal that everybody's is talking about. The new normal, the new life after COVID-19. Some industries disappearing, some new industries happening. We know technology is going to be with us to stay. What is the shape of this new normal? I mean, is it wearing a tuxedo? Does it come in jeans? What is the shape of this new normal? What do you think it's going to be?
Wallah, Salma, I wish I knew. And that's the truth. I wish I knew. I did mention a couple of times that we haven't reached to the bottom today to count our losses in terms of the wider picture. The new normal is definitely digitally enabled. That's for sure. In many companies, they're talking about, especially multinationals, why do we need to have offices globally? We just don't pay rents. Everyone works from home. And I've gone through some of these discussions with some friends in other organizations, be it local or multinational, and everyone has a view. Everything has pros and cons. There is a new normal. It's still in the making, whether it's in jeans, shorts, or a tuxedo. I don't know sitting here today. What I'm sure of, as I said, is definitely digitally enabled. So dinosaurs who don't accept the transformation, don't accept the digital enablement of their businesses, they will cease to exist very shortly. Yes, there will be businesses that will disappear. There will be a lot of casualties, but there will be new trends coming up. And some of the old timers like myself, Muhammad Khadr, my good friend, would remember back in the early 90s when me and him went and bought our first mobile phones back. You know, that was a big thing. Coming out from these ridiculous pagers that used to be updated every 5 minutes or whatever it was, and learning how to write an email back in the mid 90s. So that was a new trend, and that was the new normal. And today, new normals will evolve, definitely. I don't know how they look like today.
Yeah, but digitally enabled. And I think most people are grappling to see where the trends are going to start preparing themselves individually and as businesses to be future ready, to deal with the new reality that we have, because that's what will differentiate people who can, you know, move on, survive, and probably strive later on.
Definitely. And when I was talking about, you know, being flexible, being agile, you know, being resilient, all goes into adapting to what that new norm and surviving in that environment. I don't know. It could be this, you know, embedded chip in everyone that everyone's talking about lately. I have no clue today.
Okay.
Thank you. I want to ask one question, please. I don't know whether it is relevant here, but you have talked about Dow Jones and the opportunities. Now we are in UAE. You know the situation of the market. The market is in a downtrend since long period. Is not reacting positively with other markets, with oil, with all these things. The other markets are reacting positively, but here the market, it is as if it is in other planet. Okay. So, what is the reason of the people losing trust in our markets, and why it is acting negatively twice or maybe 4 times any of other markets in the world, but when positive news, it doesn't react, and we have a very strong economy. يعني UAE should be one of the strongest economy in the world. Why is this happening? And really, we are losing a lot of money. Why? Because we have confidence in the market. The minister last week, he said that the share market doesn't reflect the UAE economy. That is something strange, and we don't know why it should not reflect it.
Thank you, Mahmoud, for your
Okay. So thank you, Mahmoud, and a very, very, very important question. And I beg to defer. يعني مع العذر الشديد أختلف معك. Let me give you a bit of flavor of how it is in the Middle East. So very quickly, I came to this lovely country back in late '96, and I stayed here working in Dubai till 2010, where in 2010, I left back to my home country, Jordan, and I was based there for around 9 years. Now, In these 9 years, the amount of downturn and up, we need to be fair in our assessment. If I look at that sort of part of the world, Lebanon, Jordan, Egypt, Iraq, Syria, which is a good chunk of the Middle East, it is a big weightage within this part of the world. Do you know, Mahmoud, that in our part of the world, since 2008 till this moment, there was no pickup in the economy. It's been flattish and sloping downwards from that time. We're blessed in the UAE that we did have, UAE, like every other country in the world, was impacted in 2008. Mm-hmm. That's not strange, that's fine, that's normal, that's the normal. But you did have a boom, you did have a mini boom from end of 12 to around early 15. You did have it. And people made fortunes. Other parts of the Middle East, that did not happen till this moment. From 2008 till now, it's been on a declining trend. And that's a very long declining trend of about 12, 13 years. Mm-hmm. As a consequence of the Arab Spring and straight after the the global crisis, it's not improved. Now, as far as the UAE is concerned, we look at geopolitical pressures as well, and let's not turn a blind eye to the fact that yes, UAE has a huge economy as far as the Middle East is concerned. The bigger your economy is, and the more global your economy is, the more susceptible it is to be impacted with trade wars between the US and China, tensions with Iran, tensions in Yemen, which is just around the corner. And you need to understand that within the bigger macroeconomic considerations, the market will be impacted, and that's normal. It is normal. However, I will not comment on His Excellency, the Minister's point of view. We may agree or disagree with him, and everyone is entitled to their opinion. My personal opinion as Ahmad, stock market does reflect the economy. However, stock market there are so many other variables at play that affect the stock market, other than just pure confidence within an economy. And you can have a cartel of people playing around with stocks and making that sort of fluctuation in the market. So there are so many other variables. You've got the liquidity part that comes to play when you're talking about stock market. You've got short selling. You've got vested interest of a few people that can manipulate the prices, and these things happen. But in my opinion, the UAE economy is a resilient economy. It has gone through a lot of shocks in the past, and give it time. With time, you see it a much stronger economy, and that is proven. I mean, I was around in the UAE back in the '98 Asian crisis, and I was around in the UAE back in 9/11 when the 9/11 events happened in New York, and each and every one of them, UAE arose stronger than before, and a much wider economy. We can debate this, and we can take the whole time slot remaining. But I think, Mahmoud, we need to be a bit patient. We need to live through this crisis, and we need to see the consequences, just like any other country.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Salma?
Yes, any other questions from people? I'm gonna go to the chat. So one of the questions is, how far from Noha, Ali, how far do we have to go to be digitally ready? And do you think that our old certificates will no longer be practical and needed in the new market?
Our old certificates, no, I think a lot of the old certificates in the foreseeable future will still be relevant, definitely. Even if there's a new normal, it does take time to get to that new normal. And even if there are new trends, we still need the new generation to learn, unlearn, get there certified. In my opinion, no, the old certificates are still valid, Noha, to a large extent, maybe not to the full extent. On digitization, it's not a push of a button. So it really depends on the various companies and industries, whether they were ready or not, and how quick they are to adopt and apply. And I think across the board, people need, even with just professionals like doctors and engineers, lawyers, there's a lot going on in their field, by the way, in terms of digital capabilities. And I think it's going to take time. And I think the various industries globally are ready to various levels. So it's going to take a bit of time depending on the industry.
Okay, thank you. We see our friend Mohammad Al Shouli has Tal. Welcome, Mohammad.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate the effort, Salma, that you do in bringing about the thoughts and ideas of people like Ahmed, who have seen multiple crises in different geographies in different times. While I agree with the fact that COVID-19 and the crisis that we're going through today, it is a unique crisis. It's a much larger than anything that we have seen in the past, but yet that will be confirmed or realized later on. Every crisis has its own dynamic, and we should not really take, it's not a cookie cutter approach. We need to be open to understanding the dynamics of every crisis. I agree with Ahmed on the fact that we will see a lot of new trends that are emerging. Digitization, as he mentioned, is the way forward. Now, we have been in a recession, whether we like it or not, for the past 5 years, and we had a lot of chronic issues in our economy, in our industries across the region. This crisis had brought in to the front a lot of the inefficiencies, and today we have a chance to address a lot of the issues that we always shied away from addressing. The dinosaurs that Ahmed are talking about has nothing to do with age. It's all a mindset here, a block that we create for ourselves that will not allow us to move forward. If I may, and to Ahmed's point on the trends that he was talking about, increased digitization is a short-term thing. However, investing in digitization is a long-term trend. It doesn't happen like this, but we will start seeing, I mean, us meeting today is a digitized move into this. We will have to rebalance our approach in business to work between the supply chain, between resilience and efficiency, meaning that I need not to have everything that is done in China and comes in on time. Maybe I need to invest more here in my backyard and look for resilience rather than efficiency. I need to augment. I have to have augmented consolidation in my economies of scale. I need to really rebuild it, so I'm not dependent on a lot of the other nations, being a smaller nation within the Middle East, which is a smaller part within the global scenario. We need to really think about stuff that we considered in the past as either taboos or science fiction or kid stories or whatever it is. Today, everything is on the table and everything is possible. It's only the mindset.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. That's very valuable.
I can't agree more. Sorry, Salma. I can't agree more with Muhammad. And probably I see a spark in his face when I reminded him of going and shopping for mobile phones back in the early 90s. By the way, my hairline was still here, and his hair was blondie-ish, not white. Yeah, it's all about.
Yeah, but it is interesting what you've termed, Muhammad, which is not which is investing in digitization, not only using it. And I think a lot of people are not thinking of that. And I think this crisis, we've been talking about digitization and everybody having digital and digital branches and across industries. And I think this crisis came and showed us that our digital strategy has really not been executed or hasn't been there or hasn't been efficient. And it has put the inefficiencies up in our faces and how we handle them. And I think there's an urgency. I feel that there's an urgency in how we problem solve. Do you feel the same, Ahmad, that we're under the gun in terms of time to turn things around?
Whether we're under the gun or not, Salma, regardless, of course, any business would be under the gun to survive. That threat will never disappear. But whether we do things swiftly or not really depends on the situation of the company. And I was still talking, or the individual, of course. I was still talking about taking a step back and taking a breather and assess things with a calm, cool head. So, to Muhammad's point, yes, we do really need to, it's all about the mindset. Speed and swiftness is really depends on the case, the company, the individual. And what is quick for me may not be quick for someone else. But time is of the essence, generally speaking. And yes, we do need to be focused.
Absolutely. Thank you. Guys, I have a ton of questions on the chat feed. We have 1 minute to go. So if you don't mind, we have room for one last question. And I apologize that I haven't been able to address all the questions on the feed. Okay. Go ahead, anybody who would like to message? Okay.
Good evening, Salma, Mr. Ahmad. I hope you are having a good time in this meeting. What I need to add to Mr. Ahmad comments all over this conference, that leadership need taking advantage of what is the current circumstances are taking place. What do I mean by this is that we need to have the best action to be done according to the current circumstances on the ground. It means that we don't have to reduce our employment. We might need to redirect it to different aspects which might be used as actively. In these times of crisis, which is, as you said, Mr. Ahmed, that we never went through before, that the leadership by itself is standing behind the labor that we have in our companies and in our communities, to deliver them whatever they need to keep surviving in their own living, in the same time to have loyalty to our businesses. That action has been made successfully in banks, but while in the special sector, it has many problems because there's no funds available for all of the employment. Otherwise, they need to change or redirect their employment in order to get the best out of this crisis. Thank you for this comment.
And thank you, Dr. Sharif, and I can't agree more with you. I was talking about efficiencies that are fit and proper for that business or that company or that individual. So it could be anything. And I fully agree with you, yes. If you can manage to get away with that sort of approach, nothing like it.
Fantastic, thank you. Well, I really don't know how it's been an hour. I really didn't feel it pass by so quickly. And although we have a ton of questions, I need to apologize because I had promised our participants and Mr. Abu Eideh that we will close in an hour. Just a minute of closing remarks, Mr. Abu Eideh.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, Salma, and thank you everyone else for participating. Most important, and I'm just leaving the best for last, most important is maintaining a positive mindset and hope.
Yeah.
Hope is, extremely important to stay hopeful till the end. And without hope, life honestly is actually worth nothing. We hope for the best, we do our best, hope for the best, target to achieve and deliver the best. And my usual closing remark, which is very dear to my heart, and I fully believe in it. Crisis will eventually pass. At some point in time, it will be behind us, and it will be fond memories even.
Yeah.
But the most important that people will remember is how you actually dealt with the crisis. And that is your legacy, and that's what you carry forward. So be hopeful. Inshallah, crisis will be over, and I hope sooner rather than later. But most important is how you actually reacted to that crisis. So everyone, thank you very much again. Stay safe. And I wish you all the very best.
Thank you. Thank you so much for a very valuable session. And the whole idea is to have practical tools. And I think giving people hope and inspiration and guidance of how to deal with it. And I think the sense that we're all in it together, truly, it's not just a saying that we're all in it together. And as you said, this crisis brings a lot of gifts with it. Because looking back, every single crisis, smaller scale, that, no matter what it is in our lives, if we look back to it, we say, alhamdulillah, that it happened because we came out better. There's, lessons learned and so on. So keep the hope, like Ahmad said, alive. And I think whenever you feel that, fear is taking over or uncertainty and you don't have a plan, there's a million resources out there. Plug into them. I think one of the blessings of this crisis is we're all coming together just to support each other. We're able to connect with people who are experts in their fields, like Ahmad, who are giving their time and their tips and so on. So please take all the advice and all of the tips seriously and stay safe. Thank you again, Ahmad. Very valuable insight. We thank you, and thanks everybody for your time.
Thank you, Salma, and thank you, everyone. Much appreciated, Salma. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.